Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Grave, the podcast where I talk to friends, family, and even strangers about their paranormal experiences. At long last, we have made it. This is episode 10 of season 2 and the finale that will wrap up our second season. I teased a brief description of this episode in episode 9. This will be a different kind of episode, as I have my friend Colin joining me, and we will be having a discussion about my beliefs on religion, the paranormal, sleep paralysis, the state of ghost hunting and investigating at large. The point of this episode is to give those of you listening my point of view on several what I would call essential topics concerning the paranormal. The idea is to provide you with a basis for my personal beliefs on the supernatural and kind of a walkthrough of how I came to the belief system I currently have. Colin is a good friend of mine. We went to college together. He was in my wedding party and is just a overall very good dude. We've spent many nights laughing together, and despite the more melancholy topic of the paranormal and the afterlife, I do think you all will find the conversation not only enlightening, but dare I say, comical. Colin is not only a good friend, but a talented rapper and lyricist. You can find his album Recession Rich on Spotify and streaming services everywhere. And as a little treat for everyone, here is a sample of his song, Growing Apart.
I'ma keep on grinding till new faces on my wrist. Won't hesitate to put you in the rear view, racing in a 6. And I hate to cut you off like some razors in this bitch. Did it to have my white friends, cause they racist ass shit. Man, I see you need a breather. We even Steven, we leaving thieving A to Z and give me 6 feet or I'll put you underneath it. Do the math, do the science, forever act defiant. Pacquiao with a pack of loud, passed out on the island. Press you like some khakis iron in my son.
So if you like what you just heard, or you want to hear more of his music, you can find him on Spotify and social media at Collie Kill It, which he does. You'll also notice this episode is a bit of a longer one, as I seem to do as we wrap each season, so I'm going to keep this intro brief, and I hope you guys enjoy mine and Colin's conversation. So Colin, obviously, you're one of my very best friends. I love you to death, but do you know why I chose you to help me host this episode of this podcast?
Tell me, Josh.
Well, okay, no guess at all.
Because I'm a beautiful human being and I'm very handsome, and my voice is just so eloquent that it is water to people's ears.
Yes, apart from all those pleasant things, I've told you this before, but of all the friends that I have, I can count them on one hand. I have no idea where you stand on not only the paranormal, but I guess the afterlife and religion and kind of that whole sphere. I also know that you will keep me honest because you never let me get away with anything. So we're going to hope that stays true. And I want this to be a honest back and forth where if I say something that's crazy or you want further clarification on something, by all means, please interrupt me and press me on whatever issue we're discussing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Give you that raw, baby. Give you that raw.
Okay. All right. Take it easy. we're 2 minutes in and you're I did want to just bring up kind of in this intro, kind of part of the reason why I wanted this type of episode to cap off season 2. And that's because a lot of folks who I talk to at some point in their tale or in their telling of their experience say the phrase, "You're going to think I'm crazy." And as the host of this podcast, I don't think they're crazy. I find them credible, and obviously they're on the podcast for a reason. I want to hear their story, but I think it's unfair of me to ask them to come on to this podcast and be completely brutally honest and lay themselves out there in front of all the listeners and myself, and then in return not give them my point of view and where I'm at as far as what I believe and don't believe. This is for myself, but also for them too. I want full transparency, and I don't want anyone who comes on this podcast to think like I'm judging them or whatever the case may be. I want them, this episode is meant so that people who listen understand and know where I'm at, it can continue to be an open conversation for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's your platform, and I'm honored to be here to talk about this stuff.
Yes, well, and I hope you do. I know there's a few things that I'm going to ask you about specifically, but the only other thing, a little bit of housekeeping I wanted to kind of hone in on before we start is why I called my podcast The Grave. And that is it's a two-part situation, but the first is obviously, there is a grave when you die, whether you're cremated or buried, whatever the case may be. There's usually some sort of epitaph with your name on it when you were born, when you died, and if you want some witty component on that piece of stone. So there's that to kind of put an exclamation point on the end of your life, but there's also, the adjective grave, which is something that's very serious or dire, even. And as I told you before, there's nothing, almost nothing more important to me than, honestly, think to anyone. I think people brush it under the rug because they just don't want to think about it. But there's nothing more important for people to, I think, understand or to hope to understand than what happens when we die.
Mm.
So obviously that's the point of this podcast, is to get to the bottom of that and figure out, as best we can, what goes on after we pass away, after we leave this human form. So with that said, I'm going to start off by asking you what your view on the afterlife and the paranormal is.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's more of a like a spectrum where in life, there's sometimes these crazy, unexplainable things happen where we get signs from whether it's, a relative that passed, a really good friend. There's just certain energies that I can't put a finger on of like even sometimes like, in making music and just things like that where like I don't know where that came from. Like there has to be an unexplainable explanation, basically. And I think it's awesome to believe in an afterlife, or even as something like a reincarnation. I love the thought of coming back as like a lemur, like that would be
Of all
awesome.
the animals, why?
I don't know. But like that has always fascinated me because the idea behind everything being just you go to the ground, that's it. I saw somebody say the other day, it's like getting anesthesia for a surgery. I don't know if you ever had that, but I broke my hand a couple years ago and had to get anesthesia. And they were like, all right, count down from 10. I made it to 8. And next thing I knew, I was in, my surgery was done and I was getting my clothes put back on, like I remember my, I
Do
remember
they
my
take
clothes.
them all off?
This was hand surgery. Why did I make it? We're
Where are my
done
pants?
here. But that is how just under I went. And, I saw someone explaining that, like being like, that's it, that's all that's going to happen. But there is no waking up. So to imagine something is pointless. And I was like, well, that kind of sucks, right? Like that kind of takes the fun out of life in general to begin with. Like, why wouldn't you want there to be something past this?
Mm. Well, and I think for me, but it's beyond the why wouldn't you? It's like whether you want it to be or not, I think there needs to be, we need to figure out if there's proof of that, like it'd be nice to be like, oh yeah, I believe that. So it's true. But for me, I need to find out more about it so I can reassure not only myself, but other folks that, like, hey, it's going to be okay. You're going to move on. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Yep. Hmm.
Okay, so as far as the paranormal goes, it seems like you want to believe, you think there could be something, but you're not totally ready to commit.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say commit in those terms. I would just say that there's moments where I believe, and there's moments where I find it okay that this is all I have.
Hmm.
And
Like one life, like live your best.
yeah, and like, I see videos of 1902 and everyone in that video is gone. Everyone came and went. And you just they put these videos in color now and you just watch them and you're like, wow, all those people had hopes and dreams and lives and grandmothers and uncles and all these families. And it's just they had all these plans, they had bank accounts, they had all houses and boom, 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 boom. And it's like, we're in 2023 and we still live in this world very similar to that, where it's we have this, we have that, we have all of these things. And it's like we've evolved, but in technologically, but we still are just, flesh and blood. It's fun to hypothesize one way and the other.
But again, you wouldn't say that you can't with certainty be like, "Oh, I look forward to."
I look forward to death.
No, no, no.
Bring it on.
To like passing on. You're kind of bouncing back and forth.
Yes. I would say I would err on the side of like there are some things that convince me and there's some things that don't.
Gotcha. So kind of agnostic on it. You're like, be nice if it was true, but unsure as to the totality of the situation.
Yes. Very nicely put.
Thank you. All right, so let's do this then. Before we, because the next section I wanted to cover is kind of a controversial topic, religion. But before we move on to that, let's get, because this is a paranormal podcast, let's get your, if you have experiences, your thoughts on any paranormal activity you may have experienced or a friend has experienced, or anything that's happened that you feel might be relevant to the paranormal story as a whole.
Okay. Where I do believe, where I am being convinced is through dreams, right? I had the most ridiculous dream I've ever had. And this was recent. This was December. In the dream, I was being investigated for a murder.
If
So
I had a nickel.
it's just a dream, Josh. Okay. So I'm in this dream and I'm at my parents' house in Massachusetts. And my dad is acting very weird. And he's saying that this person that upset him is, somebody that he wants me to like, hurt, whatever. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he was just acting super strange. And then all of a sudden, like the police come down the driveway and they're like, we're investigating a murder, like da 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 da. Da. And all of a sudden, my dad, my mom, everyone's nowhere to be found. It's just me there. And they're like, we have reason to believe there's a body in the house. Come with us. I freaked out, So I was like, no, there's no way. And I was like, I live in North Carolina. I'm just up here visiting my parents. They take me to the station, and I'm sitting there as a TV on the screen. And it was all over the news that I was the suspect. And they kept saying that it happened on October 8th, 2020. And that was the last time they saw that person coming to my parents' house in Massachusetts. And I was like, there's no way I was there. Dude, like this dream was so clear. And I was like, there's no way I was there. I was in North Carolina in 2020. There's no way I couldn't travel because of COVID. They sat me down and I was like, look at my phone. You can look through the photos of my phone in October. It's traceable. You can find it. They grab my phone, they start scrolling, and it all just goes blank right around October.
I thought you were gonna say there was just photos of you with like a knife, like slowly murdering someone.
It's like a little slideshow of just like slowly raising the knife.
Just
Oh, would you look at that? I guess, yeah.
because it was me.
And so it just starts going blurry. And I was like, no, there's no way. There's gonna be like a backup. There has to be something. And so the FBI was like, yeah, we can't find anything that you're in North Carolina on your phone, da da da. And then I freaked out. And all of a sudden I woke up. And I remember Hazel was sitting right there, and I was like, yo, I just had the craziest dream. Oh my God. And then it dawned on me, I was like, wait, what was October 8th, 2020? What are any photos are in there that were from that time? So I'm going through my phone, and I get to October 8th, 2020. And this, I don't know if you can see it.
No, it was all a dream.
It was a photo I took at a bar with one of those lights that says Biggie's line. It was
Yeah.
all a dream.
So are you one of those people that believes that we're in like a simulation or something?
I don't know what that is. Like, what are the chances? I thought it was just going to be a picture of me like throwing a football or some bullshit. It was all a dream, like reminding me that like it's going to be okay. It was all a dream the whole time that I'm stressing out in this dream. And I was like, I don't know what that's called, but that is such a fucking coincidence that I don't know. I literally was like, look at this. I showed everybody. I told my whole family the story.
Is that the only photo you took that day?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was the only photo from that day.
wow. That is a little more sincere than I initially thought it was going to be. That's pretty wild. So your dream told you it was all a dream.
My dream told me it was all a dream.
It's like Inception. It's
Like October 8th, 2020. Like I swear, I remembered that date so hard. And I woke up right away and was like, yo, Hazel, like da 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 da. And we both looked through it together. And she was like, we both just dropped the phone and we were like, what the fuck?
I mean, yeah, it seems to be more of something special and less of a coincidence. It's like, what are the chances?
Exactly. That cannot be, oh, just like your brain being like, oh, he thinks he thinks she's murdering people. Let's just tell him it's all a dream. Let's
Yeah.
have him scroll back to, you know what I mean? Like,
A specific day where you don't even remember taking the photo. Yeah.
exactly. Like, that's just at some bar being like, oh yeah, look. That was the most mind blowing thing that has happened to me in the I can't not explain that sense.
Gotcha. Did that event in itself alter the way you think about maybe not religion, but I guess the supernatural in any way?
Yes, in a like unexplainable explanation. Now
Like
I know that your goal is to find that information, but I just love the idea of it. It's like studying the universe, right? You're like 10 billion stars and the way that time travels and like it would take 3 seconds for someone to speak to you on the phone from the moon. I
yep.
don't really know what quasars and what quarks are and shit like that, but it's just cool.
But I mean, to that point, there's a very I like science and I appreciate science and I think it does a lot for humanity. But there are certain things where, for me, there's a great film called Leaves of Grass where Edward Norton plays himself as two brothers. And one of them's like kind of this hillbilly. You would assume he's like uneducated. And then his other brother's this like city, I think he's like an attorney or something, or maybe I don't know. He's a wealthy guy. But they go back and forth and there's a scene where they're in this car together. His brother, the one you would assume to not be very intelligent, said he compares God to parallel lines in the sense that as humans we understand the concept of parallel lines, two lines that run completely parallel to each other and they never intersect. But as humans, we have never and likely will never be able to create parallel lines. And he equates that to kind of the idea of God, where it's like we can understand God, but we will never, obviously fully be able to because we can't, it's not
That's a great
possible.
way to that's exactly what I was trying to say.
Mm.
Like I know what it is, but I can't
You can't
give it.
articulate it because you can't even wrap your mind around it because it's something that technically like shouldn't be possible or like would not necessarily fit in our realm of like reality.
Yes, but there are just different realms.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. Well, this is a great segue. And thank you for sharing that because honestly, when you wrote me and you you wrote in our doc, it was all a dream. I was like, he's a rapper. He just likes Biggie Smalls. But
Yo, it's living my dreams, dude.
but that's much more insight. Like that's a very impactful thing to experience.
I just jaw dropped to the floor, like for I don't know. That was like an eternal moment.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's something like whenever you doubt you that you may come back to that moment and be like, but that happened.
Exactly.
I think it's very important that we all have those moments. And I think anyone who is even somewhat religious will be like, oh, I believe in God because, I prayed and something happened or, in a deep, dark, dire moment when I was, gonna kill myself or whatever the case may be, like I felt a presence that made me feel like I was gonna be okay or whatever. Like, I think anyone who has those types of moments, whether they're something like your dream or a feeling, it's easy for anyone who doesn't believe to be like, "Oh, you just thought that because, you didn't wanna do what you were gonna do or you knew you needed to turn your life around." But at the same time, there's the other explanation of something actually helped you along the way where you may not have been able to do it yourself. And I'm a firm believer of God can't do for you what you can do for yourself. So if you're strong enough to do certain things, it's not going to be on God, it's going to be on you. But for the things that you can't control and the things that you kind of have to battle through and God willing you make it through, I believe that he will help you in those situations. My journey starts with religion, and I touched upon it briefly in my episode with Nick Demore. Before I get into my personal beliefs, let's just touch briefly on your thoughts on religion as a whole. You don't need to get into the weeds, but like, what are your general thoughts on religion?
So I was raised Catholic.
Mhm.
I went to Sunday school, went to CCD. I was confirmed. I was Jesus in the Stations of the Cross. All right.
That does not surprise me. You got those cheekbones, those Jesus bones.
Except I will say that on our like third day of doing Stations of the Cross, during one of the moments on the altar, you have to like literally hold the cross,
Yeah,
and
as
there's
Jesus would have done. Yeah.
that Jesus would have done as he did for us.
Yes.
And the whole church is full of people. And I got hot. Like I started getting really hot and feverish. I just put the cross down and just walked out of the church. My dad came outside. He's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Oh, dude, it's so hot in there. I'm like, I'm having a panic attack, I think." I was like, I don't know, 14 years old, 13. But that happened. Jesus put the
How
cross.
did you recover from that?
Jesus put the cross down and walked away. You know what I think of religion? No, I grew up around religion, so I've always had a belief in a higher spirit.
Mm,
I've always had a spiritual connection with a conversation personal to me for, again, things that I can't explain and moments that happen, and also times where things are tough and what's the word? Adversity, where you say, "Hey, look, I need you to remind me that I'm capable of this." I think a lot of people are like, "Send me a sign and help me out." It's not a desperation for me. For me, religion, I like to experience people's viewpoints. And like, my wife is Christian Orthodox, and at their church they do it very differently than Catholicism.
mhm.
Their masses are long.
Oh, I know. I was there.
but but there are different aspects of spirituality, and you have to respect that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, you do. And I, as a congregationalist, which is kind of an offshoot, under the umbrella of Protestantism. As you know, you were at my wedding. Our pastor was a woman,
Yeah, she was
and
great.
she's amazing. Chris is one of the best I've ever met. But she's a woman, which obviously wouldn't fly in the Catholic Church. But she's also a lesbian. It's like I describe it as like Protestant light, or like Catholicism light. Like it's there. It's a very open and embracing kind of community, I feel like. And
It's like the white claw of religion.
exactly, yeah. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah.
But but it's interesting because like you grew up Catholic, but I never looked at it really, like, in my mind. I never looked at it very differently than being Catholic or Baptist or whatever. Like I didn't really have that wherewithal to be like, oh, these are super different, because they are, and they aren't. Like when I was getting confirmed, we were brought to different places. We went to a synagogue, we went to a Baptist church to like experience the different styles of worship, and I
Oh,
was like, oh, this is different. Like
yeah.
this is not how we do it.
Oh, so you got
Um,
that? Oh, look at
and
that.
it's not to say one's right or wrong, but I
I
I
think
think
that's where when people are anti, I think that's what turns people off the most, is that they automatically assume that, someone who is supportive of religion and believing in religion, they automatically think that they're just gonna press that on them.
mm,
Like there's different forms, like you said, like your wedding was absolutely beautiful. Like her as a speaker, and just like the whole vibe of that with her kind of talk. Remember she was like talking about the earth and stuff like that. Like, and
yeah.
then that guy got up there and did that speech and stole the show, whoever that was. Who was that guy?
Uh,
That
in the
was me. That was me.
oh, damn it.
Love is, well, it's great.
I knew that was coming. Where was that even from? What was that? Was it a
It
movie?
was Anthony Hopkins.
Oh yeah, Meet Joe Black. Was that what it was?
Meet Joe Black.
Hmm. You're
People
gonna live on in infamy for that speech.
people came up to me, they're like, did you just get up there and say that?
Sound like off the cuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. For me, I don't think religion needs to be this like doom and gloom, be a good person or you're going to hell situation. But
No.
but with that said, I think that the tenets of Christianity are, hold true throughout, whether you're Baptist or Protestant, Congregationalist. I think there's a duality in life, and there's, I believe in God. I believe in a soul. I believe in heaven. I believe in an afterlife. But there's also, to those points, there's juxtaposition. So for heaven, there's hell. For God, there's the devil. And the main kind of lightning rod there is good and evil. It's hard because I didn't initially kind of want to accept that I believe this, because it on its surface if you accept that there's a heaven, then by default you almost have to accept that there's a hell. And if you believe in God, you almost have to believe that there's a devil. And if you believe both of those things, then you have to believe that there's angels and demons. There's kind of levels, at least in my mind, to how this works. And you can't just kind of cherry pick. And so I had to at a point be like, okay, I either believe in all of it or I probably shouldn't believe in any of it.
Yeah, you can't just focus on the good. And that's
Right.
a that's a, I think that's a common misconception too, is that people think that like, oh, if God exists, why do kids have cancer? Stuff
Mhm.
like that. And it's like it's not necessarily the devil either. It's not they're not pulling the strings, so to
Right.
speak, of forcing people to go through these things. But there are temptations from the devil that cause people to do
Can
crazy shit. There
Yeah,
are.
can lead to one thing or another, and I absolutely believe that, and I we'll get into this a little bit later, and I don't want to spend too much time on religion because I know it can be a draining topic for people, and also don't want this episode to be 2 hours long. It might be a two-parter for all we know, but um,
Well, I mean, this
we've
is what we do.
we've done it before, but
We're jibber jabbers. That's what we do.
just gab gab gab.
That's it. We haven't caught up in a spell. We just want to talk.
But I do in all seriousness, I struggled with, and somewhat still do, with the topic of hell because obviously you're not like, oh, there's a hell in the center of the earth, but because like in theory that would make sense. If heaven's in the sky, hell would be in the center of the earth where it's hot and magma and terrible. But in the Bible, Jesus references hell as, I believe it's called Gehenna. Yeah, that's how I'm going to pronounce it. It's probably wrong, and it refers to a place of eternal torment in some sort of valley outside the walls of Jerusalem, which for me gave me kind of a moment of clarity where it's like hell isn't necessarily this fire and brimstone place. And you think of like Dante's Inferno and like any show or movie
South
that's
Park
been like,
movie.
but like everyone has this like idea in their minds where like hell is this place of fire and
Right.
eternal torment, where that may not be the case. We may just have been kind of misidentifying it. And I will say, I wrote this in my notes, but I don't know if you're probably not, because I feel like no one is, but there was a French philosopher. He was a Christian and converted to Islam. In one of his essays, very smart guy, but he in one of his essays wrote about the seven towers of Satan. And this is a kind of a one-off. Like, this, people may find this crazy, and it could be. But he wrote about how an old mystic told him that there were seven kind of like almost temples across the Eastern Hemisphere where there were beacons of evil. And it's Sudan, Niger, Syria, Turkestan. There's two places in Russia and Siberia, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and
Jeez.
yeah, I know, but that's what I'm
All
saying.
seven,
Like,
huh? Like, I mean,
if
just
you think of these places like that,
no places that I'm going to take a.
crazy shit happens there.
I'll
It's like
say that.
not great. I'm gonna leave it there. Like, if you feel like looking into it, it's called the guy's name is Rene Guignon, something like that. Again, probably butchering it. But if you're interested in like some weird metaphysical stories, like, it's a very interesting concept. Going back to that, like, hell's a place on earth type of situation.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
And I only include it for that because it kind of also like reinforces the idea that hell's not that hellfire that we often associate it with. In the end, I was laying in bed one night and I was honestly thinking about this episode and kind of how we were going to discuss this topic, because I wanted to get into religion, and because I feel like it is the basis for my current belief in the paranormal. And for me, it felt like the answer kind of just like hit me in the chest. I sat up in bed to be like, whoa, holy shit. Like, I think I had a realization. And that was that I don't think, as much as I want to prove that there's life after death, I don't necessarily think it's something that we're supposed to know. I think, like,
Mm,
if you think about it in a biblical sense, you believe in God, you believe in free will and all that good stuff. There's a part of it where, let's just say someone was like, hey, figured it out, even scientifically, life after death. There you go. Think about all the atrocities that might occur if people knew that were the case, and people knew that, if they repented before they died, that whatever they did, whatever terrible crimes they committed, would be forgiven, or whatever the case may be. I just feel like if that were known, that there's life after death, there, like, the world, as shitty as it is now, could be ten times more so. There could be some, even like kids, or like people just doing stupid shit, like, oh, if I'm gonna try and jump between these two cliffs, and if I don't make it, who cares, I'll go to heaven. I think that it goes against kind of the life death balance. You're not supposed to just be like, oh, if I die, I die, who gives a shit. It's like,
Yeah, and I think like the greatest thing that people do is protect life.
mm,
As you as a father, and also as like simple as driving down the street. Yes, you might be stressed out, you might be late for work, but if you're going to go 60 miles an hour on a 2-lane road when it's a 30-mile an hour and you're going to swerve by people, like, it just, that is the type of like, like,
mm,
people that hold the door for people, just protecting people. Okay, there's a rush at the door and everyone rushes in to get somewhere and people get trampled. Protecting life is the best thing you could do as a human being, and as a servant, as we live on this earth. Like, I hate to say the word servant, but it's like, this is, we all feel that, especially when we lived in New York City, right? You didn't really feel like it was like, this is my world. It's like, no, you're all part of this giant thing that's going on in
yeah.
this place and time. So be nice to people, protect people. It goes a long way. People notice it, even if they don't congratulate you or thank you like right off the bat. Like, just something intrinsically
Yeah,
really, really stands out when you protect life.
absolutely. And I think, like, that lack of recklessness, like, people appreciate someone being careful as opposed to someone being like an absolute moron, and like just like losing their freaking mind.
Like, how many parties did you go to where somebody was like, "Oh, I don't give a fuck," and then they lit the living room table on fire, or they just did something like crazy shit, and it was like, in that moment, it was like, "Whoa!" But then later on, it was like, "Yeah, that
Yeah,
wasn't that."
like, why'd you do that?
Yeah, no, it's like,
But in the most dire circumstances, it's like someone could, if again, in theory, if someone proved the afterlife to be true, someone could just be like, I'll give a shit. I'm gonna go shoot up this building, or I'm gonna go rob a bank, or I'm gonna, whatever. I'm gonna go kidnap this person. I don't give a shit. Like, the possibilities that opens up are significant, and not in a good way. I feel like, and I think that it comes down to just being a good person, as I think we both believe we should be, and hope everyone believes they should be. But I think there's consequences to not being a good person. But on the concept of hell, it could technically just be a place on earth, is kind of where I want to now jump from religion to kind of ghosts and the paranormal, if you'll permit me to do so.
this is the grave. You're listening to the grave.
You are now the voice of the promo.
Just working on a little segue of my own there.
In the same vein of hell could possibly, potentially be a place on earth, is kind of where we're going to move on to ghosts and where they kind of fit into all this. We started off with a religious thing. And again, I want to impress upon everyone that despite the fact that I believe in a soul, you can treat this as a personalized energy, or however else you want to describe it. But to me, we all have a soul, kind of a ethereal component to our physical bodies.
Mhm.
It's kind of the only way my current theory of the paranormal works, and people have obviously attempted to explain the soul. There's the 21 grams experiment, which met with some criticism. There's, near death experiences. There's a bunch of stuff that kind of goes into people trying to figure out what happens when we die. But either way you cut it, for me, something happens to your soul. Now, one of two things, at least in my mind, one of two things happens when you die. You either ascend to heaven, or you remain earthbound. Now, this kind of goes back to the religious thing where, like, you lived a good life, you go up to heaven, no strings attached. You stay earthbound. And again, this is just my personal point of view, but there's several reasons why you can potentially remain locked to earth in a spiritual realm. And the first is, if you don't know you died, if you died in a car accident, something like quick and tragic, or a shooting or something like that. If there's a reason you need to hang around for why you died, if you were murdered and you're trying to, you know, get your killer caught, or there's a message you need to relay to someone, or there's some other reason why you need to stay around. And there's other reasons, in that vein, obviously there's a multitude of reasons why you might need to stay. The third reason is kind of more delving into that hellish realm of you turned away from God and you're no longer welcome in the kingdom of heaven, so to speak.
Mhm.
So in my mind, those are kind of like the three circumstances for why you would stay earthbound. Now, in my mind, when you're earthbound in hell, so to speak, in quotes, ghosts, I would technically say, are either in hell or limbo or purgatory or whatever you want to call it. The black and white of it is, if you're a ghost, you're earthbound and your soul has not been able to move on. And that's just it. You just haven't ascended to heaven yet. You haven't been able to, for whatever reason, you haven't been able to move on.
Mhm.
There's a show called Supernatural, and there's 17 seasons of it. It's a CW show. I'm not proud to say that, but I watched all 17. I watched no, I watched all 17 seasons, and they have a very interesting take on ghosts, and how they kind of purport it is that when you die, if you're a ghost, there's one character in the show who doesn't feel like moving on. That's literally the gist of it. He's like, I want to stick around for these two young kids who I'm protecting. And at first, his spirits, like, he helps them, he like guides them through certain situations. But as time progresses, he kind of loses his humanity, and as he becomes more and more like, as his soul ages in like the ghost realm, he loses like like certain emotions, and he becomes more wrathful, and he just becomes less and less human and more demonic is not the right word, but he takes on all of these negative qualities that you might associate with like a vengeful ghost or something like that. And it was just a very interesting, and the kind of the end of that progression is you kind of become this like husk of a human being, and you just encapsulate all these negative emotions, and you've lost all your humanity. You just exist in a very negative space, and to me that's the kind of general progression of what it is to not move on. So I think like you hear people being like, "Oh, I saw the spirit of a little girl," but it's like, "Oh, it's a little girl, like, hasn't moved on yet. She doesn't know she's dead or whatever the case may be." But as time progresses, I fear that those spirits who are trapped on this earthly realm will degenerate into more malevolent, malicious, kind of more evil entities the longer they stay here, because they lose that humanity. They just know what they are, and there's no longer that need for
Yeah, it's like they're not part of
compassion or
and they're not part of, like, the human entity basically anymore.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's so, like, to me, I know it's a show, but, like, it really hit home where I was like, "Holy shit," like, that's a very apt description of what could possibly happen to your spirit or your soul should you not move on.
And your soul has to be something different than something that exists with a brain and a heart.
Oh, yeah, yeah, the soul, to my mind, is an ethereal kinda,
Like, people think that, like, oh,
appendage.
saying, like, a ghost is, like, just you die and then you're you, but you're floating through the air. It's like, no, but yes, there's the soul is a different part of you.
A conscientious, like, I keep calling it an appendage, but it's like a spiritual appendage that, like, it's there, you just can't really figure out where. Given that that's the general basis for my working theory of ghosts, I believe that there are two types of ghosts, and then a third kind of more evil entity. The first is obviously the ghost, which is just the spirit of someone who hasn't moved on yet, and that's like early stages. You can still, if you see them, they appear potentially as they were, whether they're a little girl, an old lady, an old man. Like, you can see those traits. The second is the shadow figure, and again, this kind of stays in the same timeline as what we were just discussing, where that spirit of that young girl or that old woman or whatever the case may be has remained earthbound, and has remained earthbound for such an extent of time that the spirit has become corrupted enough where the humanity has been lost from it, and
Mm.
what you're getting now is more of a shadow figure or just a kind of blurry person that has no semblance of humanity anymore. It's just this kind of dark creature. And I do think these can be either the progression of the ghost into a shadow figure, or I think it can be the third level of this, which is demonic, which is a demon that can maybe disguise itself as a shadow figure. The ghosts and the shadow figure, I believe, are technically spirits that used to be living. The demonic are not are have never been human, and I do believe that they were put on this earth, as obviously a juxtaposition to angels. But whereas angels, you'll get that there'll be a moment in your life where something happens, or you see something happen, you're like, "Holy shit, that's a miracle." But at the same token, there's the demonic side of things where it may not even be something super drastic, but I believe they influence us in a negative way to act on our negative compulsions. Things like, drug use, certain bad habits, all
Pornography.
excuse me?
Pornography,
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
gambling.
Yep. All the sins. I believe they attempt to make us act on those compulsions, and they want us to move further and further away from God. So in the long run, at the end, that person will devolve to a point where they don't believe in God and they don't need God, and then they don't get into heaven, and then the devil wins.
And they're left here in purgatory.
Exactly. See, we've come full circle. But to me, at least, there are those three levels. There's the ghost, there's the shadow figure, and then there's the demon.
Beyond the lingerer, right? Like if the killer gets caught, that was like one of the things you brought up.
Yeah.
Does that soul move on? So like you said, like somebody was killed, right? And they're left. The killer
Yes.
gets caught. Are they removed? Okay.
Yes. I believe that once the goal, whatever they're left on Earth to do, is obtained or accomplished, that they then move on. And I will say that only because, and we'll touch on this in the next segment, but I interviewed a medium, a spiritualist named Jessica, and she told me a story where a mother and her family came to Jessica and asked her to find their daughter. The daughter had been missing for a while, and they presumed she was dead. And as Jessica was on the phone with this family, the spirit of this young girl came through and like attached itself to Jessica. And on the phone, she didn't say this to them, but she told me, she was like, "Oh, and she's dead. Like, this sucks. Like, I have to find a dead girl now." But she didn't tell the family that. She just said, like, she'll try and help find this girl.
Wow.
The girl keeps giving Jessica like clues. There's bushes. She's naked, things like that. Like, just giving not necessarily the exact location, but like little signifiers as to more and more descriptive as to where her body could be. Eventually, Jessica gets enough information. The cops find the girl's body. She's in the exact position the girl told her she was in. She's completely naked. She's by some bushes. Like, it was just a whole bunch of stuff that Jessica couldn't possibly have known. And Jessica said that she didn't know they found the girl's body initially. Like, she had reported what she was getting from the girl to the police, and the police, bless them, were like, "Okay, let's follow this up because we have no other leads." And before the police called her, or before the family called her to tell her that they found the girl's body and to say thank you, Jessica said that the girl's spirit just like left her. It was like, "Thank you for finding my body. I'm out now." Like, that's all I needed was for my family to know
Wow. How
that.
intense.
And yeah, it's very intense, but it's also like one of those things where it gives me like, it makes me feel good to be like, yes, you moved on, and like that's like something that happens. And I this is honestly a perfect segue to move on to our next section. Let's kind of digress a little bit into the realm of mediums and exorcism, because
Uh-huh.
I kind of lump the two together. But before we dig into kind of my interpretation, you have a story that you said you might want to
I
discuss.
actually went to a medium's show, if you will, if you want to call it that. And I'd seen his YouTube videos before, this guy, Matt Frazier. And I was kind of like a little nervous, like to actually go, because when you see somebody on YouTube, it's like you kind of have you can people are big time critics when they're on the internet. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
But when I was actually going, I was like, wait, this is happening. And so when I went there, he came out, and I have to say that I had a mixed emotions in the experience. I felt like there it was a little bit of showmanship going on,
Mhm.
but what he did for people who were dealing with grief was there was a family there. It was probably about like 10 people, right? The entire family. They all had the kid on the shirt on, like they're all wearing the same shirt with the kid's face on it.
Yeah.
And clearly, he wasn't just randomly finding spirits in the room. He magnetized over towards them, and I don't know if he had known the story about the kid or something, but like he just was there for comfort. And I could understand that, like, there has to be some sort of like connection, that he is really good at what he does. But at the same time, I was like, I don't feel like me judging this is necessary. Like, this is working for people who are grieving over the loss of their family member. And like we talked about earlier, whether or not this is explainable, it's not up to me to like decide that.
Sure, but I do think that, and this is where I have an issue. So you watch this guy, and he provided some solace to a family who was grieving for the loss of their son.
Yeah, and there was like an old lady sitting in the front row, and he's like, I'm hearing a Rose. And she was like, Rose was my sister. And it's like, it's an old lady, and Rose is a very common name. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's what I'm saying though. It's like
Yeah.
I understand the want of people to be like, please communicate with my deceased loved one.
I'm on the fence
He
with everything we've talked about tonight,
I
by the
know, I know, and I'm hoping I can convert you slightly, man. That's why I have you on. That's why I need you. Here's my take on it, and I don't want to spend too much time on this either. But for me, the percentages like this: 80% complete bullshit. I would say 15% varying degrees credible. 5% actually legit. I believe that there are a small portion of people on this earth who are completely in tune with, the spiritual world, and can communicate and can see things and hear things and help people. I truly do. I believe that there are another 15% that in certain degrees they can maybe hear things or intuit things, or get certain messages, maybe not all the time, but enough where it's real. And I feel like the rest are just people being like, "Oh, I can make money off this." The people who believe shit. I'm really good at like just reading people. Like I just feel like the majority of mediums, and again, I'm not saying they're all phonies, but the majority of them not real. They're
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
they're jumping on a phenomenon that people who are grieving and who are in a lot of pain, they'll believe anything, at a certain point. They're just like, I just need some solace to know that my loved one isn't in pain anymore, or my loved one has moved on, or whatever the case may be. And there's a bunch of people in this world who will take $100 and just be like, I'll tell them whatever they want to hear. But I believe if you find one of the real ones, there's a lot of good that can come out of it. And I think the same thing goes for exorcism. As someone who has just said that he believes in heaven and hell and demons and angels, I believe the numbers are much more skewed when it comes to exorcism. I believe that there's probably like a 98% fail rate when it comes to exorcism, and there's only like a 2% situation where there's actually a demonic possession. Because as I said, I think demons are here to get us to do things we wouldn't normally do, push us in certain directions away from God, as opposed to fully possessing us. I think most of us have the wherewithal and the fortitude to be like, I don't need to do this negative activity that's going to get me in trouble. I don't need to take this drug. I don't need to drink this last drink. I don't need to do this.
Especially for uprooting mental illness from anything is not easy, you know.
Well, that's a very good point. Like mental hysteria, mental illness, like that absolutely coincides with both people who seek out mediums and exorcists. It's like you could I will say there are a couple exorcists, that like notable Vatican exorcists, who definitively say like majority of cases are just people who are crazy. Like they just have schizophrenia or some sort of mental illness. And I respect that, because it's the exorcists who are like, every person's possessed, or like you go to the church where like the guy's just like there's 500 people and he's like you're possessed, and
That'd
it's
be
just
nice.
like
You
it's
know, like,
absolute chaos.
"Oh, it's honey, that's not any I slept with the prostitute because 'cause I'm possessed."
Yeah. It's yeah, and that's the stuff that kills me. It's that like commercialized religious
Oh, well, those things.
purification.
It's a song and dance, but
It is. It is. It's a snake oil salesman. They're just that's the thing. Like I hate people who use religion for profit, and unfortunately, it's a lot of what it's become today.
agreed.
So we're gonna move on to a topic that I recently just discussed in episode 9, which is sleep paralysis. You said you had a terrifying experience with this once.
Yes, and I can only say that it only happened to me one time. I hope it never happens again. I was I was probably over like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 2011, those days, and I was sleeping on the couch. When I fell asleep, the fan was on above my head and the light was still on because I wasn't tired, but I just ended up falling asleep on the couch. And so I opened my eyes and the fan was off. I went to move and could not move.
Hmm.
And at that point, I was like, "Oh my god, I can't move." It was one of those moments where you wanna scream, but you can't, and so I was, like, frozen, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, I felt this shadowy figure coming from the kitchen
Yeah.
right at me, and as soon as I felt that presence, I was able to jump up through it. It was like I was jumping out of mud, the way that I was able to get myself to wake up, and as soon as I sat up, the fan was moving. So for some reason, my mind was able to show me that the fan was off. I don't know how that's even fucking
Did you
possible.
did you see the dark entity or did you just feel it?
I felt it. I felt a presence coming at me. And I know this sounds crazy, but this legitimately shook me for a long time. I had like trouble going back to sleep after that for like a few weeks. It
Because
was
you were like struggling whether it was reality or in your head.
gonna happen again and get worse, or the next time I won't be able to move, and then
Well, I will say, Colin, the fact that you even mentioned a shadow figure, whether you saw it or not, definitely coincides with the majority of sleep paralysis situations that I've learned about. I will say, this is something that obviously I just spoke to a couple people about, but for me, and tell me if this sounds crazy because I know it might to some who are listening, but this is my theory on sleep paralysis, and it's not based purely on science. So,
I didn't
but
Google it.
the situation is thus: when we sleep, we're in a relaxed state. And I think the sleep paralysis part, obviously, you wake up and you can't move because you're still kind of halfway in sleep, halfway awake. So, when again, the vast majority of people see shadow figures or some sort of creepy situation, and to me, a lot of people chalk it up to being like, "Oh, I was dark and I woke up and I just saw some like shadow," but it's like I was kind of half in and out of dreaming, so that's probably what it was.
No, this thing was coming at me.
Yeah, but that no, but that's my point. And Barnett Brettler, who I just spoke to, had the same exact thing as he when he was a kid and when he was a teenager. He would see the shadow figure would walk towards him and lay its hand. He would feel it grabbing him. That's how real this was. And given your story, I these are not figments of your imagination or your dream mind being like, oh, it's a shadow figure. I mean, you woke up, couldn't move, and there was a presence making its way towards you. To me, sleep paralysis is you're in between realms of reality and for lack of a better term, a spiritual realm. And I feel like you can see certain things that you wouldn't be able to see normally in that state. Now, as someone who's never experienced sleep paralysis, I can't obviously speak to it with much authority, but from what I've heard, it just seems like, and again, like the shadow figure is the figure people see. It's not like people just like someone wakes up and is like, oh, I saw a unicorn in my room or whatever the case is. Like it's always a shadow figure or
Yeah.
something.
Yes, and it only happened that one time.
But that also kind of lends credit to the experience where it's like you didn't. And again, there are a lot of reasons why this may have popped up in your in between state. You could have been stressed out. You could have had a bad meal. You could have, I don't know, drank too much or whatever the case. Like there's a lot of reasons people give to why you may have seen something like that, but at the same time, I'm like, I've been drunk many times, woken up and never seen anything. And I've been on drugs many times and I've never seen
Yeah.
something like that, you
No,
know?
this was like a night after playing ball, a very regular night. This wasn't anything crazy. Like I was very conscious going to sleep that night. And so, but the one thing I will say is that I wasn't expecting to fall asleep on the couch,
Mm.
but the fan being off and then that presence coming towards me and over me because if you remember my house, my parents' house is there was like a little bit of like a raised up area from the kitchen to the living
Yeah.
rooms.
Yep.
It towered over me as it was coming to me, and the way that it happened was it was such a split second of when I felt it, I was like, "Oh," like, "Oh my god." So then my knee jerk reaction was to move my body, and it was very hard to get out of that.
But you got out of it,
I did.
which
I
is more than
panicked.
some people. Because, like I will say, the one thing people do is like they scream themselves kind of awake, so to speak.
Yeah,
Like
that's what happened. I was like, "Ah," like, it was like I said, it was like jumping out of mud.
Yeah, no, and I think that's all you can do, and I don't think you'll ever be able to know whether that was a real situation or whether that was just your mind and kind of in that overdrive sleep state. My thing about the whole thing is just like you could wake up, think about all the things you could in the vast realm of dreams. Think about all the things you could possibly dream about, and when you wake up, the one thing that you see is something scary, whether it's a shadow figure, whether it's a whatever it is, scary creature. Majority of the time, that's what people say they see. So for me, it's like, oh, you could have been dreaming about strolling through a forest with your best friend or your girlfriend or whatever it is, and you come into the sleep paralysis state, and all of a sudden, creepy figure looming over you on the couch. It's
Yeah,
like
like, why is it always that?
that's
Yeah,
not what you were thinking about. So it's like, how could that possibly correlate?
and it
And I'm sure there's some psychologist out there who's like, well, actually, but they're just again, for me, science can come up with an explanation for why it happened, but that's not necessarily the explanation for every time that happens. That's what bugs me.
well, science can't prove everything because we just found, stars very far away that are 12 billion years old that don't make sense with the Big Bang theory. So like,
Science can't prove a lot of things. Like I said, we
uh,
we discussed the parallel lines thing, but it's like there's even things, there's ethical statements, there's objective morality, aesthetics. Like you can't explain why some people love country, why other people love classical music, why other people love hip hop. Technically, science can't say that the Nazis were wrong. There's innate things in this world that science cannot give us an answer to. We have to, as humans, figure them out on our own.
yeah, and say like the Nazis were wrong. You know what I mean? It's
Well, I
like
mean, yes, they were. It's not.
like
It's
but there's no like mathematical equation
That's what
like
I'm saying.
like to define our facts.
Exactly. Thank you for finishing my thought. Okay, cool. So I think we covered as much as we need to on that. We could obviously spend much more time on it, but I want to move on to our last segment, which is just ghost hunters and kind of the current state of paranormal as a whole. And I think this might be a situation where I'm kind of out on a limb by myself, but please let me know if you feel the same way. I feel like we are in an era now where spiritual paranormal stuff has kind of come into the mainstream. I feel like there's podcasts like my own. There's the Spooked podcast, which is kind of what I modeled this podcast after. There's also the Anything Ghost podcast, which kind of is similar to what we're doing. There's a niche in the podcast world for this type of stuff. I'm a huge YouTube fan, and there's a guy on YouTube called Nuke. Well, it's called Nuke's Top Five, but I've been following him for years, and he just posts like 5 to 10 creepy, like found footage, supposedly real videos. Used to be every week, now it's like every month. But there's him, there's Slapped Ham, there's a bunch of like ghost hunters. Franco TV is awesome. There's like I said, it's like a wave of ghost hunters and paranormal kind of enthusiasts that are posting things to kind of I don't want to say raise awareness because they're obviously doing it to get views, but which also lends credence to the fact that like yes, potentially they could be faking some of this stuff. But at the same time, it's not only on YouTube and podcasts, it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok. There's a woman on TikTok named Jen Barari, and she has this like haunted farmhouse, which if you go to her TikTok page, there's some crazy shit that you see. Like, and I can't say whether it's completely real or not, but her reactions and kind of just what she deals with day to day seems so genuine and so honest. I have to believe that she's just going through something terrible. I believe there's kind of like I said, like a new wave of paranormal enthusiasts. I think it used to be like ghost hunters and what's
Shows,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, like what's that guy's Zach Baggins, like all these guys on like the Sci-Fi Channel and
Yeah.
like the TV stuff. I feel like it's kind of run its course, and I feel like the new wave and the way that we're getting our paranormal sources and videos are purely from digital and social outlets.
My 2 cents are, I honestly, after having these conversations and bringing a lot of, like, what I'm bringing up things that were earth-shattering at the time when they happened, make me want to kinda delve into this realm, if you will, a little bit more.
My goal
'Cause I'd like to
is
see more,
accomplished.
like I said, I'd like to see more beyond just the ghost hunter shows where it was like, "I'm getting a clue, I think I got a clue too," you know? Um,
Yeah.
I got a raging clue over here. But, like, it's it's beyond that, people can experience more in their own world and kind of, like, not have to put on such a production to have something go viral these days, you could literally tell a story and it could go viral.
Right, yeah, and that's my thing when I watch this stuff, like I said, Nuke's Top 5 is, like, my favorite because this is just a dude who I don't even know if he actually believes in the paranormal or not, but like, the stuff that he shows, like, he between him and Slapped Ham, they're probably, like, the 2 biggest ones who are just, like they aggregate the best paranormal videos of the month or the week, and they just throw them all together in one cohesive video. They're getting the best because people are submitting to them, which again makes it seem like people are like, "Oh, I'll just create some crazy paranormal video, and whether it's fake or not, I'll get the views." But at the same time, there's, like, these TikTok videos that you're just like, this is just someone on TikTok, and they're just like working at like a 16 handles or something, and like the lights are flickering, like like cups are flying off the walls. So you're just like, this is like a 16-year-old kid who like has no production experience, and it's just like filming crazy things that are currently happening to them on TikTok. Like it's almost like
Yeah.
in like the Facebook Live stuff you'll see. And again, I'm not saying that that can't be faked, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to fake some of the stuff that they're showing. So I think on the whole, paranormal activity and paranormal videos and people who are exploring the paranormal have become much more mainstream than they used to be. And I think and it makes me happy because I think it's only going to get better. And I think people are only going to continue to attempt to show that ghosts, spirits, demons are real. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
No, and I think that, for me personally, kind of my whole objective on this whole experience on this podcast is to kind of say, you have to have an open mind about
Mm.
everything.
Yeah, that's my whole thing. And again, the whole point of this podcast is to just get people aware is the wrong word, but just at the very least interested. And
And
again,
like, and I have to thank you, not to cut you off, but like to invoke some of those experiences that are I have more experiences now that are coming to mind. Like me and a buddy of mine went for a photo shoot one time to this abandoned juvenile detention center, excuse me, from like the 1930s.
mm,
And you're not allowed to go in there, but he worked next to that building, so knew the times when there wasn't gonna be people there. So we went into this building, and we went to the basement, and I sat in a chair, and I still have a photo from that shoot, and we felt spirits in that room, and I kid you not, we were like, "Bro, we should not be here. Like, we need to leave here. We need to leave them alone."
yeah, but I almost feel like that's like your soul feeling the other spirits and just being like, "Yo, we get it. We're living. You're not. We gotta keep our space."
Yep, respect the space, respect that, and they went through some shit there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A lot of the times, like especially that's type of stuff, the early 1900s, where like sanatoriums and stuff, people were just treated like absolute animals. They just had some mental illness that they didn't know how to treat. So they're like, let's just torture them and figure out what's going on. It's
Yeah, you'll be fine. Hey, try this, kid.
yeah, let's just electrocute them, and then we'll figure out what's going on afterwards.
Pour hot water on him, he'll be fine.
Yeah, he's just a kid, right?
They're
Not gonna come
resilient.
back as he's not gonna come back as your ghost, I promise.
But I mean, and that's really it. I think we've come into an age where there's a lot more openness to this type of thing. Whereas I feel
Yep.
like, a few years ago, people would have been like, it's just shut up. Like we're not dealing with this. And I think people just didn't want to think about it. And I understand people don't want to think about death. People don't want to think about, what happens when you die. But at the same time, why wouldn't you? Like, isn't that not
I agree at 1000%. Like, if people are like, "Oh, that's morbid," it's like, "No, come on, open a discussion." Like, you have to
we're
have
all gonna die, It's like
yeah, like, that's all and that's the beauty of it, though. Like, that it's like life there's this meaningfulness that lives in succinct with each other, and it's a beautiful dance if you really embrace both sides.
goes back to that duality I was talking about, the good and evil. It's just like, we've come full circle. There's great things in this world, there's bad things in this world, and at the end of the day, when it finally
Life,
comes,
there's death. Like,
yes, exactly. We there's two sides of the coin, and whether you want to figure it out or not, that's up to you, but it's going to happen one way or another. So I'm just trying to give people a heads up if I can. We're not there yet, but we're trying.
try is all you can do.
Exactly, Colin.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to wrap up season 2 of The Grave. I want to give a big thank you to Colin for jumping on and co-hosting this episode and really helping me delve deeper into my own personal beliefs on these subjects. Colin just has a very gifted way of seeing both sides of the story, and even when things get a little dark, he is able to bring a light to whatever we're discussing. Before I let you all go, a quick note on season 3. I 100% plan on having a season 3. We've actually already started interviewing, but I don't plan on releasing season 3 until I have all 10 of the interviews done. I think both you and I know that if they're not all done by the time the season starts, it gets prolonged and pushed back just due to general life constraints. So I'd love to give you guys a release date for season 3. Ideally, it would be sometime around Halloween, like we've normally done, but I don't want to make that promise and then have that time come and then have to go back on it. There's a couple other creative endeavors that I plan to focus on in the coming months, but for those of you who have stuck with me this long, I do fully intend on having a season 3, and I will absolutely keep you updated as the interview process nears completion, and hopefully soon after that, we will have a season 3 on our hands. So with that said, if you're someone who's had a paranormal experience, someone who vehemently disagrees with some of the things I've said in this episode, or someone who is unsure and maybe just wants to have a chat, I am 100% open to talking to you. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at either Josh King, A Bridge to Land, or The Grave Podcast. Any combination of those words should lead you to me. You can also email me at podcastthegrave@gmail.com. So thanks again for another season, guys. Really appreciate all the support. And as always, I hope to have you all back for some more scary stories.